So the question that we're asking in this video is, how come we both have the same chord progression, but my playing sounds so much worse than his, or maybe his playing sounds so much better than mine? For my case, it was when I was listening to Bill Evans play under Miles Davis in So What? How come his chord is a D minor 7, I have a D minor 7, he has a D minor 7, how come his D minor 7 sounds so much better than mine? Oh, of course, that's what makes him Bill Evans and not me, but I want to learn how he makes that D minor 7 sound so cool. For you, maybe it's something that perhaps you've gotten in the church and you've, a couple of chord progressions, simple chord progressions, and you've realized, how come somebody else is playing the same chords, but they are playing in a way that sounds so much richer, or sounds so much fuller, or sounds so much more emotional. But I have the same notes too, but how come it's not the same? And what I told you last time is that the arrangement of the notes is just as important as the notes themselves, and that is why the chords, they tend to sound different, is because the arrangement of the notes will highlight certain qualities and characteristics of that chord. So when you play a chord from root position C, E, G, you're highlighting a certain quality. But if you always do a root position throughout all your chord progressions, then the quality of that chord, or that feel and emotional characteristic of that chord, hasn't changed. And that's why perhaps some of the chord progressions sound a little dull and sound a little simple. So last week I told you you can use different voicings to enrich it and to make it a little bit more lively. And the first thing that I talked to you last week was the 10th voicing. And if you haven't checked that out already, go back to the last video and check that out. This week I want to share with you a second voicing sort of tip that I've been using especially in worship a lot, is I just call it drone voicing. Let's take a look at how that works. Drone voicing, this is just a name that I've made up because that's sort of how I understand it to be. Basically what it is you choose a note that will be your drone throughout that chord progression, meaning you don't change, you just keep that note there throughout your chords. This is something that is really common for me. I've heard a lot in guitar playing, in worship playing, and sometimes in pop and modern playing too. In the classical world, it's sort of like called a pedal point perhaps, but this one is sort of inverted because you keep that pedal point on the top. For example, let's take in the C major, for example, we can use G, the fifth of the scale, of the key, as our pedal point, as our drum. And we can play a chord progression with the G stayed on the top. And what that ends up giving you is it gives you some rich voicings, because when the chord shifts underneath that G, it gives you some extensions with the G, and also gives you some interesting movement, because the G tells you that it's the same, it's constant, but everything else underneath shifts. It's also very nice because it doesn't create a whole attention on its own, because the top note of the chord progression isn't moving, isn't doing too much movement, isn't going to stake out too much. So I've really gone to like this way of comping. Let's walk through theoretically how that spells out, how that changes the chord. So for example, let's go back to the G on the top here. Well, on the C chord, there's nothing changed. The G is still in the chord. If we put the 7th underneath, the B, you should get like a G7 with a B on the bottom. Nothing too special there. On the A minor, what normally is an A minor now has gotten a 7th on the top. A minor 7. On the G, there's still a G. On the F is really nice because the F now has a 2 in it. E minor hasn't changed because G is in the chord. D minor is really nice because D minor now all of a sudden has a 4 in it. Really smooth sounding. And if you want, you can put the 7th and 3rd underneath. Gives you that really full voice. And the C has nothing changed. Let's take one more as an example. The other one that I really like is just to put the root on the top and just change the chords underneath. Let's see what that would give us. So in the C key, C major of course has nothing changed. D minor has a 7th now. E minor is really nice. I like it a lot, this one. It gives you that rub on the top, but it's not too dissonant. You can sort of see this as like a C major 7, but inverted to have the E on the bottom. F has nothing changed. G chord is the one that I really like too. Again, it has the rub on the top with the B and the C. Now this is sort of like a G add 4, G major add 4. Really modern 5 chord. A minor has nothing changed. The B minor, the 7th chord here is probably the one that I would use the least. I don't really like that one. But out of, these chords, by keeping the C on the top, I've gotten quite a bit of leverage out of them. So there's quite a bit of chords that I like. And you can go through a whole chord progression basically, which the C or the 5th on the top, or different notes of the scale, and you can experiment and see which one you end up liking better. So let's go through the exercise quickly, and then you can grab these sheets and then practice them for this week. So for the first exercise, so let's go through the exercises. You can find the links in the description box below. Exercise and the etude. The exercise basically is what we've just gone through, but you can go through them in all 12 of the keys. And what I've done is I've put the 5th on the top. And here is what the first 2 bars sounds like. And then you move it up to D flat. And D. And it's very important that you go through all 12 of the keys just so you make yourself really competent in all of the keys, regardless of what key you're in. So that's an exercise. Go through all 12 of them. This one has the 5th on the top, but once you've gotten through this, you can put the 1 chord on the top and simply just change the chords on the bottom and see what you get. The etude that I wrote for this one, it's a little piece that I quite enjoy playing now. It's a lovely little thing. I've combined the drone voicing and the 10th voicing together to make a piece, and I hope that you will like this piece when you play this too. So the voicing of the chord is just as important as the notes. Remember that. The arrangement of the notes is just as important as the notes themselves. So you have now a 10th voicing, and you have now a drone voicing. And go grab that exercise and go grab that study from the link down below, and you can work on both of those. I've integrated both of these techniques into that etude piece, into that study piece. Play it and hopefully you'll like it. What's important to remember is that when we play the piano and using these voicings to play, it's important to remember that you don't just stick on one type of voicing throughout the whole section or throughout the whole piece even. So that won't solve the problem of the voicing sounding too simple or the chord progression sounding too bland because you haven't changed it. So I think the key is to vary the voicing as you go throughout the piece. If you want to highlight a certain more richer quality, maybe use a 10th voicing. If you want to be a little bit more hidden, more in the back, but you still want some spicier notes in your chords, maybe use the drone voicing. And maybe you just want to go real simple, maybe you can do the root position or maybe a 3-note normal voicing that you are normally accustomed to. So remember to vary your chord voicings, vary the arrangement of your notes throughout the piece to highlight certain things, and I think that will make your chord playing to the next level. So if you have enjoyed these videos, make sure you like it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you have more questions about voicings, if you want to learn anything else, you want to make a suggestion, leave it in the comment section down below, and hopefully I'll see you again next week for another music sharing video.